Nicole Levy, welcome
Hi.
to Life in a Garden Online. Thank you for joining us this evening. We can see you clearly because we're wearing our glasses. Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself, please. Where do you hail from?
So I hail from Potchefstroom.
Wow.
And yeah, I first got my first pair of glasses at the age of 3 because they thought I had leukemia.
Yeah.
And I had bruises all over my body, and they realized that my parents weren't beating me. And so I
They
went
weren't
for a
beating you.
Yeah, amazingly. So I went for quite a number of blood tests to check for leukemia. And then the last thing they did was test my eyes. And they realized I just couldn't see. So I was bumping into everything and falling off everything and didn't have great coordination.
Wow,
and my mom said to me that as a young child, she used to try and teach me color because my mom's an artist like you. And she was trying to teach me color, and she would say to me, Nikki, go and fetch the red mug. And I'd come back and I say, I can't look. And she said, stop being lazy, just go get it. And I'd come back and I say, I can't look. Anyway, when they gave me my first pair of glasses at the pharmacy, +7, she says, I put them on and I said, I can look. And I think that's where my journey into optometry began, is appreciating how important vision is.
But what about you as a person? Where did you go to school? Were you in Potch? Why does your father commuting and getting seasick?
Potch Primary, and then King David High School in Joburg, which was not my best years.
Not coming out of Potch. That would have been a bit of a culture shock, wouldn't it?
It was a complete culture shock. That's exactly the way to put it. And then I went to Wits University and I studied microbiology and genetics. And I found the pure sciences really interesting and fascinating. And I actually studied virology, which would have been my job right now during COVID. But I found I needed to be around people. And one thing that allowed me to marry science and be involved with people was going into optometry. So I went to Cardiff University in Wales, in the UK, and did not learn a word of Welsh. Well, I lie. I learned to say welcome to Wales, which is Croeso I Cymru.
That's fabulous, yes.
Welcome to Wales. And I had a wonderful time in the UK, but South Africa is my home and where my heart lies. So after 4.5 years in the UK, I came back and worked for other people for a number of years. And then in 2008, decided it's time for my own practice. And I've been practicing in Rosebank in Joburg since 2008. So in November, it's going to be my 12th year. But all in all, it's been 20 years in optometry, and it's been interesting. And I learn every day. And I think when you say you know it all, you haven't even begun.
What is the highlight of being an optometrist for you?
Sure, there's been some lovely stories for me. You know, everyone thinks it's just about better 1 or 2, 3 or 4, and that we're little mushrooms in the dark. But there's a young girl that really sticks in my mind. I was a pre-registration student in the UK. And so pre-reg year, you're working under supervision. Anyway, so this 13-year-old girl came into my practice, and her mom was with her, and they were going through a divorce, and she was so shy, and she came in, her head buried in a book, and she wouldn't even look up at me. And we did the eye test, and her mom said, I'd like you to try contact lenses. So I said, sure. Anyway, so put the lenses in for her, taught her how to put them in and take them out. And I said, I'll see you in a week. A week later, she walked into the practice, head held high, flicked her hair at me, and was this completely new kid. And it had opened up a different world to her, to not be the geeky girl behind the glasses. Not that I think glasses are geeky, because they're really trendy at the moment. But as a teenager, it gave her this new self-confidence, which was lovely to see. And yeah, so that was one of the lovely stories for me.
And the shitty ones?
And the
shitty ones?
The one that wasn't so fun was, I had an ophthalmoscope where you're looking into the eye, and I looked deep into this man's eyes, and I was about this far from his face, and he went, that's tempting.
Oh no, that's creepy.
So I stood back and I said, do you want this ophthalmoscope up your nose? Sit and behave. But he might have liked that. I don't know.
Have you got a red room in your practice?
But yeah, I had a little bit of a scary case the other day. A 16-year-old girl came in, double vision, just not happy with her vision. And first time she's had an eye test. And that was in July. Had a look in her eyes, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to send you to the doctor right now. She had swelling on the brain.
Oy.
Anyway, the good news is she didn't have a brain tumor, and they've managed to lower the pressure in her brain, and double vision's gone. She just needs some glasses for a little bit of short-sightedness to see in class when they can go back to school. And he's doing much better.
What would have caused that?
So it's called benign intracranial hypertension.
I'm sorry.
And so benign means there's no tumor. So thankfully, they don't really know what causes this. But sometimes if in some people, when you put on weight, and I think with her growth hormones, and she's not a particularly big girl, but I think because she's growing and maybe she just grew too quickly, or her body just put on weight too quickly, it can cause that. And so they've just got her on a low carb diet now.
It's quite interesting, when I, also in about 2008, I got a headache. And during the headache, I got a pain behind my left eye. And then the eye started to go dark. And I went to see, I can't remember what her name is, Joanne Miller. She was up the road from the shop, and I went to see her, and she said, no, you need to see a neuro. And I went to see Gianpaolo, and he put me in hospital, and they thought I had encephalitis. But while I was in hospital, the darkness switched from the left eye to the right eye.
Oh.
And he turned around and he said, this is MS.
Okay, and that's how you got your diagnosis?
No, because a year later, there were still no lesions on the brain. So there was no diagnosis then. But for me, it was very interesting how the two things were linked. It was an optic neuritis. And he immediately said, this is MS, and it didn't show up for another, 6 or 7 years. But for me, it was very interesting the way the whole system worked together. He goes to the ophthalmologist, go from there to the neuro, and then the switching in the darkness. So it was very interesting. And then there's a bit of permanent damage to the one eye. Like if you turn the light off at night, they see different darkness. That's the only time that you can tell that there's any kind of damage to my eyesight. So one sees it slightly darker than the other.
Yeah, I've also had only one case where a chap came to me, also very vague symptoms, could see but wasn't sure, something just wasn't up. And then you do the red cap test, where I made him close one eye, show him a red cap, close the other eye, show him a red cap, and the colors were different between the two eyes. And then that's when they scanned him also with the query of MS. Because with the optic neuritis, that can also happen, where colors are different between the two eyes.
So did he have MS?
They said they don't like to diagnose from just one scan.
Yeah, it takes a year at least.
And unfortunately, but they never got back to me about, they didn't follow up with me.
Okay.
But we were concerned. They've also said, as an optometrist, it's not our place to diagnose that kind of thing. And I try not to freak my patients out. So if I see something like that, I just say, look, it's important you go and see the ophthalmologist and the neuro, and then they'll discuss further steps with you.
Well, that's fair enough. So now Nicole's
Yeah.
not here to shoot the breeze with me. She's here to answer your questions. So if anybody has questions, why don't you just pop them in the chat box and I will relay them to Nicole. Nicole, there is a comment here. Shamini says she was at Cardiff University as well, but from 1980 to 1984.
A little bit before my time.
I know. I only started high school in 82.
So, yeah, I was Cardiff Uni 97 till 2000. But it's such a wonderful city. Yeah.
We had a Welsh girl on kibbutz with us when we were on Ulpan. We didn't understand a word she said, and she was talking English. I mean, it was just.
But they've got a lovely sing-song accent that's going on.
She was cute.
But,
she was like a little leprechaun as well. I mean, she was this cute little thing with curly hair. I think her name was Shirley, if I remember correctly. And then when she spoke Hebrew, it was a complete. Then it was just complete. Like you didn't understand a word she said, but she was very cute, and that's all I remember.
Well, while we wait for other people's chat, so there's another story that was quite lovely, which it turned out quite nicely. This guy's a yoga instructor across from me, and he came in and he said, oh, he's got one blind eye, and I'll answer that question in a moment. And he said it's always been like this. So I had a look, and he'd actually had an injury in that eye. Somebody had stabbed him or something in that eye. And I spoke to one of the local ophthalmologists who very kindly operated on his eye for free and restored his sight.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, it was just a cataract. So he had a traumatic cataract. And now this guy in his 30s had his vision back after about 10, 12 years of having lost it. So that was quite nice.
I was blind, but now I see. Can you speak about
exactly.
contact lenses and whether it's safe to wear them all day as I used to years ago?
Okay. So firstly, contact lenses, the most important thing at the moment, particularly with COVID, is hygiene. So always wash your hands before you put your lenses in or take them out, because your eyeballs are the only part of your brain exposed to the outside world. Your eyes are actually an extension of your brain. And yes, with the new materials, it is actually safe to wear your contact lenses all day. If you wore lenses many years ago, there's been vast improvements in the contact lens comfort, oxygen supply to the eye, as well as some lenses containing lubrication. So the healthiest option with a contact lens would be a daily disposable, where you wear them once, chuck them. You get 2 weekly disposable lenses, wear them during the day, take them out at night, and you've got 14 wears. Or monthly disposable, also where you wear them during the day and take them out at night. I'm not the biggest fan of the lenses that you leave to sleep in at night, because it's a foreign body in your eye, and I think just give your eyes a break. It's also a good idea when you come home at the end of the day, maybe an hour or two before you go to bed, to just take your lenses out, give your eyes a bit of a break, and maybe on a Sunday or pick a day where you don't wear the lenses.
Okay, so give your eyes a bit of a rest.
But generally, and also don't be silly about lenses. Like if your eyes are red or something's irritating you, take your lens out. So basically the rule is, if in doubt, take them out.
Go without. Barbara, what do you wear now? Do you just wear glasses, or did you have LASIK surgery?
These days, I tend to be wearing glasses as much as anything, but I do own some of these daily disposables. I find, to be honest, I find them expensive, but is there a problem if one wears that daily disposable twice?
It's not a great idea, because you do increase your risk of infection. So just make sure you're cleaning your lenses really well if you are going to do that. And they do tend to tear a bit easier. And also some of the dailies have got lubrication and things in them that is enough for one day, but not the next day. So you'll probably find that your comfort the next day isn't as good as the first day. And if you scratch your eye, if it's uncomfortable, then you at higher risk of an eye infection. But you also get daily disposables, I don't know your age, with multifocal, so that you can see far and close. But those are quite pricey.
Yes, I didn't go for that fancy ones because I have that built into my glasses.
Yeah.
So I just went with the plain for the
Okay.
contacts, just to keep
Yeah.
costs more reasonable.
Fair enough. Yeah, our exchange rate doesn't help us because everything is imported. So every time our exchange rate goes bad, then they just increase the price of the lenses, but they don't seem to lower the price of the lenses when the exchange rate gets better. So
That's the same with
Thank
most
you.
things.
yeah.
Barbara, are you happy with that? Thea, can you tell me more about a retinal membrane? More as opposed to what? What is a retinal membrane?
So if I understand you correctly, you get a thing called an epiretinal membrane. And that basically looks like cling film on the retina, normally over the macula. If it's the macula is the central part of the eye and you use your macula for very fine focus, you might have heard of some elderly people having macular degeneration. So
Yes.
the macula is the part you use for reading and fine focus. If there's a membrane over that, sometimes they leave it if it's not distorting the vision. But if that membrane starts to pucker a bit and looks like cling film that's not smooth, then sometimes they need to do surgery where they remove the membrane. I'm not entirely sure what causes it, but that's what the epiretinal membrane is.
Is that anything like a cataract, or is it completely different?
No, completely different. So a cataract is the lens in the eye that's become cloudy. And that surgery is pretty common where the lens is in a bag in the eye. So what they do is they remove the lens, they leave the bag there, and then they place an artificial lens into that bag. And it's about a 20-minute op. Sometimes you get a couple of lens cells that were left on the bag, and they might cause hazing again, and the person almost thinks they've got a cataract again. But to fix that, it's a quick jobby with a laser where they just zap it with a YAG laser.
I'm thrilled at the prospect. Thank you so much.
I'm actually quite looking forward to having cataract ops one day because then my prescription won't be so high. We can fix my distance and I'll just need reading glasses. So I think it'll be quite cool.
Listen, by the time you have it, it might be a completely different ballgame. I mean,
Yeah.
what are you looking at? 10 years or 20 years or 50 years, or you don't know?
Well, I'm hoping 30 years or more, but yeah.
Okay. Shamini, I recently found a dark spot in my right eye. I thought it was something in my eye, but didn't go away. So I went to the eye shop at Nicole Way, and the optometrist said it wasn't anything to worry about unless it got worse. Is he right? It hasn't got any worse, but I noticed the same in my left eye now.
Okay, so we all have a certain number of floaters, and some ophthalmologists call them bits and bobs very scientifically in your eyes. And if you look at that little blob and then it moves, it's nothing really to be concerned about. And we tend to notice them more if you look at a blue sky or a white wall. Also, as we start getting a bit older, after the age of 20, there's the gel in the eye starts becoming a little bit more liquid. So that's your vitreous. And anything that was trapped in that gel now starts to move around. So all the proteins and things that were in that gel when we were being formed start to move ever so slightly. And then we start getting these floaters and we notice them. And that's why we get more as we get older. It is a concern when you've suddenly got lots of floaters or a shower of floaters or flashing lights when you're sitting in the dark, or a curtain coming over your vision, then that's potentially a retinal tear or a retinal detachment, and that is an emergency. But you can also get what's called a vitreous detachment, where the gel detaches from the back of the eye, and that's fine. It's nothing to worry about. So some floaters are normal, but if you start getting a lot of them, then it is a good idea to see the ophthalmologist for a checkup, particularly if you've got a family history of retinal detachment, or if you a high minus prescription, then you've also got a higher risk of retinal detachment.
Shamini, you good with that?
Yeah, sorry, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what he kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a good one. I don't even know if I can say this. My nephew has keratoconus.
Keratoconus.
There's that one.
Keratoconus. Okay.
Not sure of the spelling, but tell me more about it. His mom is also on the Zoom at the moment.
Okay. So my brother also has keratoconus. And what that is, the reason it's called keratoconus is it's the cornea, which is the clear part on the colored part of your eye. So right on the front part of your eye. So the bit that you'd stick a contact lens onto is your cornea. And that starts going into more of a cone shape. So instead of being nice and smooth, it starts protruding
like
forward.
Madonna's boobs.
Yeah. So there's a thought. Thanks for that. So what they do, particularly in young people, which is a good thing to go and chat to with the ophthalmologist, is as it starts protruding, they can do a procedure called cross-linking. And what that does is it increases sort of the strength and the scaffolding in the cornea. So how they do that is with laser and vitamin B. And that slows the progression of the keratoconus. Doesn't always stop it, but it can slow the progression. And the thing with people with keratoconus is it can get to a point where glasses don't correct their vision properly because of the change in shape of the cornea. And you can't use soft contact lenses because it doesn't help either. So what they do then is either fit a hard contact lens to make a new surface, basically a new optical surface on the cornea to help the person to see. It's important to know the person's not going blind. So it's just a little bit trickier to fit them with a contact lens. At the early stages, glasses can still work, but sometimes you need to go the hard contact lens route. My brother was a particularly severe form, and he was also in the years where cross-linking didn't exist when he started with keratoconus, and he actually had to have a corneal graft. So what that is a transplant from an organ donor, and they graft it, and he's got great vision now, but he still needs glasses. But as I say, he was quite an extreme case, and it doesn't necessarily always get to that point.
Bridget,
Any other questions on that?
Her other nephew has high pressure behind his eyes in the high 20s. Their gran also had glaucoma.
Okay.
So did my dad.
So, and you say he's in his 20s. How old's the nephew?
No. The pressure's in the 20s, apparently.
And how old's the person?
Laurel, how old is Josh? I mean, Timothy, about 17, I think, 16, 17. The one with the other thing is about 19, I think.
So the normal range of pressure in a person's 11 to 21, okay? When it starts getting higher than 21, we do start questioning, but they need to measure the thickness of the cornea. So once again, that's the clear part right in front, because in some people, the pressure looks like it's high, but the cornea is actually quite thick. And then they've got to just calculate for that. So if you've got a thick cornea, the pressure reads higher, but it's actually normal. So they first calculate for that. If it's still found to be high, then they would measure every 6 months or so. And if it's still found to be high, then they use eye drops to lower that pressure, as you would in anyone with high pressure who has glaucoma. But it doesn't necessarily automatically mean the person has got glaucoma.
So what are we talking about, pressure behind the eyes?
So you have to have a certain amount of pressure in your eyes to keep them as a ball. Otherwise, it would just deflate, basically. Yeah. So your eye is a ball, right? So you've got fluid in the front surface of the eye, called in the anterior chamber, and that's renewed on a daily basis. So we keep making fluid. And then you've got the gel at the back of the eye, also holding the eye as a ball. But it's that fluid in the front. So I'm not talking your tear film, I'm talking inside the eye. If there's some kind of blockage where the fluid's not going out and can't be replenished, that can increase the pressure in the eye. Or if there's an overproduction of that fluid, that can also increase the pressure in the eye. Then it's not something you would feel. It wouldn't cause any pain. But if the pressure buildup is too high in the eye, it causes damage to the nerves at the back. And then that's when people... So then you lose visual field, and it slowly comes to the middle, and then if it's untreated, that is, but you can treat.
So
if you've had nerve damage, though, that damage can't be reversed. You can only prevent future damage. So
macular degeneration versus what are we talking about? Glaucoma. What are the? Is the final thing the same, or? I mean,
so it's complete. No, it's actually completely different. So macular degeneration is the center where you get deposits, fatty deposits, and that's called drusen. And you get two forms. You get a wet form and a dry form. The dry form, sometimes they'll advise you to take supplements. In some people they work, in some people they don't. But it causes a central visual field loss. So with macular degeneration, you don't lose your peripheral vision. So you'll always see motion, color, but you lose that fine focus, like to read and to drive and things like that. Whereas glaucoma actually starts the other way. It starts in the periphery and then moves to the center. And with glaucoma, you can get total loss of vision, whereas with macular degeneration, you don't.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
What about things like retinitis? Is that something?
Like a retinitis pigmentosa, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an inherited condition. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there isn't treatment, although there's a lot of gene therapy and research going into that. And if people do have retinitis pigmentosa, they can contact Retina SA for assistance and support. That also, it starts patchy. You start losing bits of your visual field, and in different people, the rate of change is different. So they might still maintain some of their central vision, but over the years, you can get total blindness, and it's often people with guide dogs, would have retinitis pigmentosa, that kind of thing.
Does it attack a particular age group, or is it across the board?
No,
so it will start in a younger person because they will have inherited it, and you see what's called bone spicules. So it's like a pigment that you see on the retina, and then it progresses over the years very slowly. But I had a lady the other day, about 4 months ago. She's in her 70s, and she didn't realize she had retinitis pigmentosa till I showed her the photos. And she said, "Oh my goodness, my sister is blind from that." And she had some of the symptoms, but she hadn't lost her vision. So it's not to say everyone will. And I think there's different genetic types, and I think they've got different expressivity. So they will come up in different ways in different people. So there's no blanket answer on retinitis pigmentosa.
Do you think there's a link between Ritalin and high pressure behind the eyes? He's no longer on Ritalin.
I've not heard anything about that. The only link I've heard is people with high blood pressure. Although high blood pressure doesn't necessarily mean you'll have high eye pressure, they have found that sometimes people who are on blood pressure medication that lowers their pressure quite low at night, the difference between the blood pressure behind the eye and the optic nerve can sometimes cause glaucoma. But I've not heard of anyone with Ritalin, having issues with glaucoma. But I'll certainly look it up, but that's news to me.
Gilda asks, what do you think of treating the brain to see differently in cases of glaucoma?
So, when we're working with somebody with low vision from glaucoma, there are some techniques where we call, like eccentric viewing. So the person sort of looks at something a little bit almost side on, where they're trying to use a different part of the retina to see something, but you would still have to magnify it for them, because unfortunately the other parts of the retina, you've got rods and cones, and you've got your highest percentage of cones which see the very fine detail at the macula. So the minute you start moving away from that macula, the density of cones is different. So you'll never be able to train the brain to see something as fine, because just physiologically, that's not how the retina works. So you can try and shift the image just off the macula, but you're still going to have to enlarge it.
Okay. Okay, so here was another one. What causes burst capillaries in the eye? The lady has BP tested and the BP is low.
Okay. So here's something my supervisor did to me while I was at Cardiff University. And a person came in with a burst blood vessel, and they look way worse than they actually are. And the reason it looks so bad and there's all this bleeding in front is that it's basically a bruise. So when you would bruise normally, it would be under the skin, and so you wouldn't really see it. But now the front part is clear, so you see the blood. And you see it reabsorb slowly, so it goes all the different colors. So the thing my supervisor made me do was go and ask the person if they've been constipated. And they all had a very good laugh as I went to go and ask my patient, have you been constipated lately, sir? Anyway, he very honestly answered me no. So the reason they had actually asked me to ask him that was, if you've pushed really hard, you can burst a blood vessel. If you got really angry with somebody, you literally blew your fuse, you can burst a blood vessel. So it can be from things like high blood pressure, which is why they check it. Also, if it happens quite a lot, to check your blood sugar, because in people with diabetes, they're also more prone to that kind of thing. So anything that affects the small blood vessels. But often a once-off is not very serious. You could have sneezed really hard. You could have coughed really hard. You could have picked up something really heavy. And with that strain, burst a blood vessel. Nothing really to do about it. If your eye's a bit irritated, put in a lubricant like Optiv or Xylene or any of those. Just don't put in eye whiteners like Saphir Blue or Igene or anything that constricts the blood vessels. Just avoid those anyway, generally.
Can eye exercises improve eyesight?
So believe me, if they could, I think I would have been an Olympic gold medalist by now doing my eyeball exercises. Look,
I mean, you roll your eyes often.
There are some exercises that are good for the eyes when you've got an eye muscle imbalance. And if that's causing difficulties in double vision, and particularly in children. But this business where we all start to hold things further away because we can't see them anymore, no exercise in the world is going to help that, because that, for instance, is not there's nothing wrong with your eye muscles. The eye muscles are still working perfectly well. It's just that the lens in the eye is unique in that it has all the cells from when you were first born. Your skin regenerates, you've got new cells turning over, but the lens in the eye has the cells from when you were born, and they're in the middle. And then you get more and more and more cells, and makes the lens thicker and thicker and thicker. And that causes the lens to be less flexible because it's now a stiffer material. And that's why we start losing up our close vision and things as we get older. So, I mean, knock yourself out. You can try eye exercises, but unfortunately, they won't do you any harm, but it's not going to make a huge difference. But that being said, people who are having eye strain, like everybody's now binge watching Netflix with COVID, and a lot of people are working from home, is your eyes do get tired. So, look away in the distance. And if you're on your computer a lot, every 20 minutes or so, just look into the distance to just give your eyes that break.
That's what they said about watching TV originally when TV first started in the dark ages. Don't sit glued to the box all the time. So I suppose computers are no different.
But it's important for kids, particularly if you've got parents who are very short-sighted, to go and spend time outside. And it's not just computers. Everybody thinks it's computers, but it's anything that's close-up work. So it can be a regular book. Anything that is close-up for hours on end, you actually need to take a break. And for kids and their eye development, it's important to just go and play outside for a couple of hours a day.
Parents who are short-sighted, are you talking about their eyesight or their attitudes?
Yeah. Bit of both. Maybe they need to get out the house away from the parents. I don't know.
Yeah, homeschooling can't be doing much good for that at the moment.
Whew, yeah, no one said to me they're sorry I don't have children now.
They're sorry they do have children now.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy I don't have children. I must be honest. The thought of having them at home all the time. Bad enough having dogs that are home all the time that have no manners.
No, my hat's off to parents. It's a very hard task.
Okay, those questions have gone quiet. Are there any more questions? Mariana, any questions from you? You're sitting there so quietly. Nothing. Okay.
I haven't bored everyone and boggled their minds.
It is quite mind-boggling. Is there anything that we can do to protect our eyes going forward? I mean, we are all mostly middle-aged,
yeah,
elderly.
So what I want to say is, you know, a lot of people are worried that these ready readers that you buy over the counter doing you damage. They're not. Okay, so the worst thing that can happen with a ready reader is that you get a headache or you don't see well with it. That's the worst thing that can happen. But what is really important is just to go and see your optometrist for your annual checkup, to check your eye pressure for glaucoma, to be able to check your maculars, because if detected early, sometimes there can be help with that. And basically just for the health of your eyes, you know, go and have your eyes checked out once a year, because you don't want to miss something like glaucoma that you could have prevented to some extent.
Or delayed, rather.
And then you left it because you thought, I can see with my readers. So, you know, I'm not trying to sell glasses to people, just go. And unfortunately, I had an elderly gentleman who came in and said, I think I'm finally getting a cataract, and he hadn't been in years for his eye test. And it wasn't a cataract, it was secondary tumors from liver cancer. So that was in his eyes.
There's a hell of a difference between your liver and your eye.
Well, it metastasized and it went to his eyes. So you can get secondary tumors in the eyes, like unfortunately post-breast cancer, post-liver cancer, those kind of things.
That's quite distressing, I must say.
It is. That's the not fun things. But yeah. But optometry can be lovely, and you asked me why I do this kind of thing. And I had a young lady, so unfortunately both her folks had passed on, and a friend of the family said, do I mind like just doing a checkup and this lady will pay? And I said, that's fine, I'll give you the welfare package and it's not too much money to pay. And the young lady came in, and I don't know how she entered my practice without a guide dog, because it was one of the highest prescriptions I'd ever seen. Like, I was testing her eyes, and I don't know if this means anything to anybody, but she was minus 25. So her glasses were like, she didn't have glasses. They'd been stolen. And I had to phone this lady, and I said, regular glasses aren't going to work for this young lady. The lab is going to give us at cost, and I'm going to pass it on at cost, and we'll make her glasses. But they only make it up to minus 18. They can't get it to minus 25. Anyway, she collected her glasses, and she dropped out of university because her glasses had been stolen, and so she was at home. So she's about 22. And I said to her, you know what? I can't sleep worrying about you. Like, I need to know why your eyes are this bad. And it wasn't keratoconus, because that was the one thing people thought. And I said, I'm going to pay for you to go to the ophthalmologist, and let's just see what's going on. So the ophthalmologist phoned me, and he said, her eye length is too long. And that's what's caused the short-sightedness. But he can't now sleep at night, and he can't leave her like this. So he operated on her eyes for free. And they basically did like a cataract operation. And she was left as a -1 normal, went back to university, started studying, and is living a full life as a visual person now instead of partially sighted.
What does your eyes are too long mean?
So your eyes have got a particular size, you know, from the front
Are we
to the
talking
back.
depth? Okay, with depth, yeah.
And then that determines, it's one of the factors that determines prescription. Like I'm quite far-sighted, and it's possible that my eyes are a little bit short, like the rest of me. And
I think we're about the same height, Nicole.
so, and that's why I'm a bit far-sighted. So her eyes, the axial length is actually too long. And so when light enters her eyes, it doesn't kind of get all the way to the back. And by removing the lens in her eye and putting in a new one, they can change how the light enters the eyes.
Okay.
So that was an exciting one for me, yeah.
That sounds
There
amazing.
was
I mean, that's good on you. Not everybody would go that extra mile and say, you know, first of all, to take on the responsibility, second of all, to pay for it, and to pursue it with an ophthalmologist.
Yeah, but he was fantastic, I must say. But
Who
yeah.
is he?
So it was Dr. Maleka at Safe Site in Waverley, across the road from Melrose Arch.
Okay, so he
And
needs
he's
a round of applause.
Yeah, he does. And he's also at Charlotte Makeke Hospital. I think I saw a question flitting about hygiene.
Yeah, there's two questions here. Do you know what causes macular degeneration and why it seems to be on the rise amongst the population?
So I'm afraid if you're a white woman and you get old, you've got quite a high risk of macular degeneration. So I think the reason we're seeing more of it is we've got an aging population. And it does have a genetic component. But other things that affect macular degeneration is the amount of pollution that we're exposed to and smoking. So smoking is an absolute no-no. Unfortunately, we can't stop breathing, and places like Joburg are quite bad. One of the ophthalmologists is convinced one must go vegetarian, so she's gone vegetarian. She treats maculas. Yeah, we see it more, and it's in an aging population. So it's important to just have a healthy diet. I'm not big on just popping pills all the time and taking supplements. So I think it's really important to just make sure you eating your fruit and veggies and getting your green leafy vegetables, and eggs are also good for you. The egg yolk, there's lutein in that, and that was quite important. The absolute cause, nobody knows. You know, free radicals and aging and things just aren't working like they should be.
Or they used to. I use eye gene drops fairly regularly to refresh or take away redness. Is this bad? Clearly it's bad. Don't do that.
So the reason I don't like eye gene and Saphir Blur is what it's doing is it's constricting the blood vessels in the eye, but it's not really dealing with why they were red in the first place. So your eyes are often red because they're dry. I mean, Joburg conditions are awful. People are on the computers all the time. They're blinking less. And that causes dry eyes, and then you get the redness. So if you deal with the dryness using a lubricant, and if you use a lubricant that says for use with contact lenses, even better, even if you don't wear contacts, because it's preservative free, then you don't set up an allergic reaction. And you can go bonkers with those things. You can't overdose. Use a lubricant during the day and a gel at night, and maybe stick a humidifier in your house. The problem with eye gene and Saphir Blur and those is when you stop using them, then your eyes go lacquer red, because you get what's called a rebound hyperemia, where the blood vessels really open and then it looks really red. Then you think, oh shit, sorry, excuse my language. Better put the drops back in, and then your eyes go white. Also the problem is in some people, it's been shown to cause glaucoma. And people with high blood pressure, it's not a good idea to block off blood vessels like that. And in some people can knock out your focusing. So you you lose your ability to focus. Yeah, that's not great. It's reversible when you stop using it, but it can make things very blurry.
So Shamini, throw those things out and buy Optive. Optive's more expensive, but obviously healthier.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
difference?
yeah.
What does Optive do that the other ones don't?
So Optive is great. So the Optive Fusion is the newer one. Xylene, Cystane, Artilac. There's a whole bunch just made by different companies, and they just supplement the tear film. The more expensive ones tend to stay in your eyes a little bit longer, so you need to use them less frequently.
Speaking of tearful, why do we cry? Besides the fact that we're upset, okay? Where do those tears come
Besides the emotions.
Yeah.
There's
Tears and snot. I always wonder about them. Where the hell do they come from?
So in your tear film, there's antibacterials and things so firstly, it's keeping the surface of your eye quite smooth, because you'll know if you've got dry eyes, it's really uncomfortable. You know, your eyelids are going over your eyes, I don't know how many times a day. So if it was like sandpaper, you don't want to experience that. And there's also things in there to kill bacteria. So your normal tear film is like that. And why we cry, I don't know. Stop crying. I don't know.
Stop crying.
Somebody said, and Optive is great. The new one's Optive Fusion. Use it as many times a day as you want. Go bonkers. With or without contact lenses in 4-6 times a day, and use the gel at night.
Well, how about that? Put KY gel in your eye. No, don't do that.
No, not that. Don't promote
Not that gel.
Optive gel in your eyes at night. The reason they say don't put the gel in during the day is that some people find it a bit irritating because it can take about a minute to clear. And you put the gel in at night rather than the drops, because it stays in your eyes a little bit longer.
Do you ever find that your eye feels like it's stuck? Like you have to kind of like...
Yeah.
What is
dryness. It's just dryness, really.
So if you like rub your eye and like suddenly it feels like it's like stuck somewhere.
Yeah, so it's probably
it's
probably your conjunctiva getting a bit dry, and you get the conjunctiva sticking from the top to the bottom, and that's why you've like, okay. Then have a cry, then you'll feel better.
Silver in eyes for infection seems to work. Is it okay? What do you mean by silver? Is that like colloidal silver?
But I don't know. I never stick anything in my eyes that's not registered from an optical side. I know everybody thinks silver is the magic bullet. Maybe they're killing werewolves in their eyes. I don't know. I would go see an ophthalmologist rather than get something proper prescribed.
Gilda, where did you hear that? Elaborate. Come on. Tell us a bit more about silver in your eyes. What silver? Must I take my silver ring and like rub it on my eyeball?
No. They say if you've got a stuff, you can put your gold ring there. But colloidal silver, actually, I had, like from eye strain, my eyes developed a bit of an infection, and I got eye drops from the prescribed, and they didn't work. And then my son-in-law makes his own infusion of colloidal silver, and that worked.
I'd be very careful about sticking things in your eyes, and also, what sterilization is he doing, and are the bottles sterilized properly, and the preservatives. And I'm a bit nervous, must be honest. I'm quite conservative.
Oh, yeah. There's no preservatives, and he's very particular about sterilizing the bottles. And then, of course, he warns you to use a sterilized applicator when you put it in. And it worked where the eye drops didn't. So I was very impressed.
What's his background?
He's an engineer. But he also does Reiki and all those alternative stuff.
Yeah, I can't comment on that because, things for me need to be scientifically tested, and dosage, and it's possible your eyes were dry, and then lubricating them also helped. So,
Ooh, no. But you're great. Thank you.
okay, sure.
Yeah, she's not too bad. Huh? Are there any other questions for Nicole? Or has she done her service? You've done very well, Nicole. We haven't stumped you
Thanks.
once tonight, huh?
I
Anybody
was a bit nervous because this is my first public speaking ever. But yeah, the only thing that stumped me, and I must go look it up, is about Ritalin and glaucoma.
Oh, so you've made a note of that. So now tell me, how's pottery?
I stopped pottery to do pole dancing.
Oh boy! That's a hell of a break. That's very different. The two things are very, very different.
Yeah, and yeah, he's but the pole studio has been closed because of COVID, so my muscles have evaporated over the last few months.
Haven't you got a pole at home you can like swing off?
I do in the garage. I'm just afraid of landing on my head.
Yeah, one needs support. How long have you been doing that for?
About 2 years.
So hang on, but you've been to pottery more recently than 2 years?
I was, and I was doing pole on a Monday, but I decided to do pole on a Monday and a Wednesday to just try and increase my fitness.
Okay.
So I had to drop the pottery. Somebody made a comment there, somebody's pressure dropped.
The pressure in his eyes dropped after he stopped the Ritalin.
Interesting. I mean, the thing is, different medications have quite serious side effects in various people. So, you know, it's possible that the Ritalin was even causing extra fluid to be produced in the eyes, which is one of the causes of glaucoma. And maybe stopping the Ritalin stopped that extra production. So that's really interesting. And I'd like to go and have a look at that, because there's a number of kids that I know that are on Ritalin. It's very common these days.
Okay, so maybe you can do a paper on it and become nice and famous. Barbara says you have an awesome complexion. I know that's not eye related, but it means you can see beautifully, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara. Made my day.
Nicole, Ritalin increases blood pressure. My daughter would love you. She's a very keen pole dancer, plus silks. Looks like a hammock. Oh, yeah. Silks. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet, but it looks really tough. And I'm hoping her daughter also goes to watch these lovely pole dancing shows. Unfortunately, not this year. And my fiance says he's the luckiest man alive, because I drag him to these pole dancing shows and force him to watch these scantily clad ladies doing their thing.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing for a boy. Well, at least you're with him when he watches.
Yeah.
Something that you can share together. Hey, Yaku. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, Nicole. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody else. Pleasure.
And I hope everybody benefited from that. And if you've ever got questions, you're more than welcome to email me. And my website is my name, so it's nicolelevy.co.za. And you're more than welcome to email if you've got any questions.
Thank you so much. Everybody, it's been fantastic seeing you all. Join us tomorrow night when we chat to Anne Dragoning, the traveling teacher. She's off to Tanzania soon as she can. And then on Sunday is our biggie with Jeremy Dronfeld and the boy who followed his father into Auschwitz. Hello, Kimmy. There's my niece at the top of the screen. Everyone have a great evening. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers.